most people know me as serving the large church, First Unitarian Rochester, 1,000 members, but it's always important for me to say that for the last 5 years of my 9 years there, I served one of our smallest congregations, Canandaigua, which is 60 members. When we left, it was 85. 85. The thing that was theologically important to me, it was the first time, and I say this with all seriousness, that I felt first time I ever served a UU congregation. Because the structures actually reflected our theology of interdependence. And I know that sounds maybe a little sentimental, but for me, this has really hit me that it's one thing for us to talk about having a theology of interdependence and applying that to everyone's personal. We do well applying our theology of interdependence to human beings and to our cultural system, but we've not as an organization really applied our theology of interdependence to our organizational system. And for me, that's just as much of a spiritual practice and a spiritual discipline as the other two ways. And so, as much as I'm sort of an organizational wonk on this, and a lot of this is just strategy and organizational design, there's a theological piece here that if we were doing an all-day conference where we had 4 hours, I would talk a lot more about that, because that is really where it has my heart. But now I'll do the organizational wonky stuff with you for the rest of our limited time. So let me talk about what my thought is, and then since we're a smaller group, let's do what's most useful to you. What I want to do today is, whereas in there I focused on multi-site as the multi-site model of churches linking together. Remember that slide where I said there are other ways to do this than multi-site? That's what we're focusing on. So I'm focusing on not the big, the big vision. I want to focus right now on some of the more accessible, you might want to call them steps to get there. You might want to also, how do I say this? You might want to call them other ways to build the architectures of interdependence between congregations. And I want to be clear that even if congregations never multi-site and you just do these other techniques of how to bond and create capacity between you, that's good. It's not bad to do one or two of the more straightforward pieces of this. Is that making sense? I mean, I don't want to set up sort of here's the hurdle. You've made it when you're here, and the rest of it along the way is just baby steps or something like that. So accessible, easy ways to do it. And today, I would like today to be about discernment for you. So with my talk, I feel like I gave you some models, some ways of thinking. Today, I want to give you more of those for you to discern what is right for your congregation. Is multi-site right for you? Or are these other ways of interconnection right for you? Everybody has to decide that in their own settings. So let's see. The first thing, let's go to what I was thinking of doing today. So I was thinking of what we could do, and I'm nervous about this, was react to what I call the whispers. Okay, so but let's do that, but maybe let's keep that shorter. Help me keep that to like 10 minutes. So I want to put on the screen a lot of the points I made in my talk, and just give you a chance to ask some questions about that. And then I want to tease out the models. Now that's the models of really doing multi-site. But you'll need to tell me how much time you want to spend on that, okay? So the options are react to the whispers, tease out the models, talk about the other ways, and then where to get help. This we can do in 5 minutes. But I was thinking this would be a quick 10. I'd whip through this in a quick 10, and we'd spend most of our time on other ways.
Good.
Does that feel right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then let's jump in. Can you see these? Is that? I wish I had done a printout of a lot of these, but so just take a second and look over these. You'll notice these are sort of themes. And again, these were things that I claim. My claim was that what was implicit in that boring bureaucratic multi-site logic of efficiencies or economies of scale, it was more than just how to create capacity. There were other messages in this, other callings, other challenges. So when I'm in bigger workshops, I ask people to say, which one called you? I don't want to do that right now, but I would encourage you, over the next few weeks to think about these. And I'll send all of you, if you put your name afterwards, give me your email address and I can send you this PowerPoint so you have these. But are there any questions? Let's just focus on questions to this, or challenges, or things like, Scott, you made that seem more easy than it really is, or I really didn't get it when you said that.
Scott?
Yeah.
I didn't get it visually, conceptually. If we look within and in between, who are we looking? I didn't quite.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a cutesy little phrase, but think about it. I hold my head from without, from within, and from in between. So without is what I was talking about. That for I think pre-2008, for about 30, 35 years, depending on how you analyze it, we did live in an economy that kind of slowly grew, and allowed churches to have capacity come from without, which basically means money. Basically means money. Our people gave us more money, not huge droves, but more. So capacity came from without because money did. Given money is drying up, and remember the thing I analyzed about our bread and butter, the people that are coming in. I'm arguing that we are headed for off of a waterfall. Unless we figure out how to adapt to attract the spiritual but not religious and the nuns, our trend line is going to go like this. And we think we're canoeing on a fine river, and we're not hearing the crashing. That's pretty dour, but I believe that. Now, we can change that. We can change that. So that's the with. That's the without. Now within, and welcome everybody. Oh, that's okay.
Finally found you.
Yeah. We're we decided together that there were 4 things we could do today. Go over, kind of react to the whispers or the points that I made in my talk. Tease out the models of multi-site in more detail. Talk about other ways than multi-site to link that are more accessible. And we decided that what we're going to do is we're going to spend about 10 minutes on the whispers, 10 minutes on the models, and spend most of our time on other ways for congregations to link. Not to be undemocratic, but those of you who just joined us, I hope that fits with the votes that you would have made, because that's what we're doing. So now we're talking to whispers, and I said, instead of, usually I have you think about your calling. So I'm going to send this PowerPoint out to everybody if you leave your address. But I would encourage you over the next 2 weeks to really sit with these as sort of discernment, and figure out if these are voices, just like we talk about spiritual direction, life gives us voices and calls us. I would say for you and your congregation, spend some time thinking of which one of these pop out in neon lights to you. Which one of these just get under your skin or feel like they have a special calling for you, and that is a guide to really where you're going. But for now, what we're going to do, we're asking questions and clarification. And the question came up about, I didn't really get, what's your first name?
Joanne.
Joanne said, I don't get the without, from within, and in between rather than from without. Everybody gets the from without, but the within and in between. The in between is what I did on the screen. In between means in between 2 congregations.
Okay. Right.
You have 2, and I use the simplistic example of a parish minister. I could use community minister, I could have used religious educator, I could have used lay leaders, I could have done a whole bunch of things. But there's ways in which when you look at our churches, by having each of them do separately, it's repetitive. And it's not a good use of our resources. And I think the most dramatic one is like the sermons. Asking a minister to put 50 hours a week into a sermon that's done once. If we were designing an efficient system from the beginning, that might not be what we do. So by combining that and sharing, you also get capacity from in between.
Okay.
Now within that's a little tricky because I'd have to spend a lot more time. But yesterday we talked about the theme. I did a lot of theme-based, what's called theme-based church. And so there are I have many within strategies, but one of those would be, theme-based church, where you start to simplify your church. So for right now we put a lot of energy into having adult ed spiritual development programs that are a cafeteria menu of 50 things. Think about the workload it takes to keep that up. I would argue there's a theological reason to simplify, which we talked about yesterday, to focus those. But that would be a way of you get more resources by simplifying, I mean, you could argue that all these, what looks like a big menu, a wonderful menu, is really a lot of redundant work that even creates a dizziness in our congregation. And you could eliminate those redundancies and create some capacity, in between. And there's a lot of other examples I'd give from within. About that. But again, it's more the logic. You probably can do this on your own. You can look within your system and see where there's duplicative things going on that are redundant or inefficient in your system. And I'm saying that's where the capacity is going to come from in the future. So other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for the room, actually, which is how many of y'all are clergy or to be clergy? Okay, how many of y'all are lay leaders? Okay, actually, wow, that's...
There's a couple chairs here, too.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I did the thing that clergy do, and I did not mean to do that. Also, religious education professionals are in the people employed by the church. Okay, thank you. So the reason I asked that question is because this stuff seems really important to me, but I wonder if I, as a person who's going to be a minister, am actually the most effective agent of this kind of change, and so I just wonder about empowering lay leadership, especially those who can't make these conferences, with the real theological and spiritual commitment to interdependence.
So the answer is yes. The answer is yes, and that's why it's a priority of all the congregational life staff around the country to start doing all their training with well, first I'd argue, I think it needs to be a really a four-pronged approach when you think at community ministers. In a minute we're going to be talking about, we don't want to forget community ministers either in terms of the way community ministers can serve a network of congregations. But having said that, we want to have a four-pronged approach. It's really, our strategy is we have to get lay leaders to own this. And this is on the congregational life staff. I mean, I know in my own situation, let me just talk frankly, so I serve a 1,000-member church, big shot, right? So when I went around to the smaller congregations as the minister and said, let's network, let's multi-site, they're like,
yeah, right.
You just need a bigger kingdom. What, yeah. Is your ego that big? Yeah. Are you kidding me? And I said, no, there's a theology behind it. Yeah, I mean, so in some ways the professionals can't do this as effectively. So you need lay people who believe this, who drank the Kool-Aid, and we need our professional staff to come in and be the spokesperson, for that. And frankly, there's a whole nother, if we had more time, we were talking about this, I think. The whole system needs a change. It's not just doing a workshop, I have a bigger vision that, imagine a day when professionals leave seminary, not just having been trained to be a community minister, RE professional, or parish, but you leave having identified you're not a well-rounded minister. You've identified your 3 or 4 things you're good at, and your others you're not, and then you've identified your 3 partners. And then you leave seminary as your team, and you go into a search process that allows not singular people to enter a search process, but teams to enter a search process.
Wow.
And then you have a search process that allows congregations to enter that, not as singular congregations, but as networks of congregations. So it's an entire, the only way this works is with an entire change, And again, I'm not naive. I mean, when I say that, they're like, 100 years? What's your 100-year plan to do that? I mean, I know these are huge systems changes, but I also feel like, Fred, what is it? The UCC is shutting down hundreds of churches worldwide a year. 100. Why do we think that when other denominations are shutting down hundreds, that we're going to have another 50 years of everything's fine? I mean, we hear do we not hear the waterfall? And we need to have something better than a canoe with one paddle. I mixed a lot of metaphors.
That's great.
It's not about learning. It's not about vision anymore. It's not about innovation. We know what it takes. It's about capacity. It's about capacity, plain and simple. That's the challenge. I mean, you don't have to agree with that, but that's the challenge to do that. And we'll talk in a second about how some of those economies of scale help that tiny church.